My name is Helene. I'm 56 years old and I live in Switzerland. I have three boys, two of whom have just left recently for university. I have one son at home and I live with my husband, Richard, and my dog. And I quit drinking on the 1st of September 2023.
So take us back to the beginning, Ellen. When did you start
Hmm.
drinking? Were you a teenage drinker like I was?
I recall when I was about 8 or 9 years old. Whenever I had this kind of rubbish feeling bubbling up in my tummy, tingly shoulders, or just felt really out of sorts or uncomfortable, I remember a packet of salty crisps, some cereal, or some, toast and honey seemed to do the job of just making those go away. Then after that, I realised that if I excelled at sport, it seemed to do the same feelings. It displaced them. And in addition, I used to get a lot of attention and praise, which was obviously something that I was craving when I was younger. And after sport, I then thought, okay, I'll throw myself into school life and really excel and do the best I possibly could academically. And that's where I met a fantastic group of girls who were also very motivated, passionate about working. We were the Spice Girls of our time. That was the point when alcohol came into my life, and I was 16 years old, and I remember it so clearly that at 16, those girls, the alcohol, and school life all married together to a period of experimentation with alcohol. It's where the magic began for me.
And how did it evolve over the years? Take us through university and work.
Yeah, that was the start. I dipped my toe into the big pool of alcohol. And like I said before, I had tried and tested a few things to help enhance my emotions, squash down my emotions, broaden my emotions, block out my emotions. And alcohol was a new substance that I added to my arsenal, and it worked very well. Because where I lived, alcohol was readily available. It was not expensive. In my house, we had a drinks cabinet. And because I was on this quest to have friends and to like me and to belong to this group, I would invite them round to my house every other Friday after school before my mum and dad were home. They'd come back to my house and we would raid the drinks cabinet. We had all sorts of these really strange coloured liqueurs. I had no idea what they were. They were revolting, but it didn't matter. The fact was, it was naughty, it was illicit, it did the job, and it was at my house. And I was loved because I had these people at my house enjoying and sharing fun times with me. So it was the whole package. Like I said, magical. From there, I went through university, same kind of level of drinking, nothing too horrific. The magic really took off for me when I started my first job at 22. And I was a management consultant and I moved down from university down to London. I was on a training course with, I think, about 20 other kids. We worked pretty damn hard during the day coding. And at the end of the day, given a black Amex card by the management consultants who we worked for. And we were told to go and reward ourselves and have a good time. Every single weeknight, we had the same black card, and our bar of choice was called Smolenski's on the Strand. It's a cocktail bar. I had never had a cocktail in my life. I had my fill for the rest of my life during those 4 weeks. It did the job. We all drank in the same way. We all had fun. It was a release. We were like a pressure cooker in the day, and the evening was just this nightlife. And I was so sucked in and drawn into it. I also think it was work testing us to see, can we hold our drink and get up in the morning, look really sharp and professional, get ourselves in the door, and crack on with a really tough day. Guess what? Yes, we could. So I passed the test with flying colours. From London, went on to Chicago for my first assignment, and then basically travelled the world doing exactly this for the next 8 years. It was magical because I was the trainee and I seemed to look the part, talk the part, and I certainly drank the part. I entertained clients all the time and was always up for doing that. So it very much was the currency of the day. So the magic continued until it started to fade.
Did you have hangovers?
They certainly were crippling, but the weekends were dedicated entirely to recovery time. So Monday to Friday for me was work hard, play hard. And then Friday to Sunday was downtime recovery. I moved from that job to banking. And banking meant that I moved to London so that I could be full-time in one place and be with my boyfriend. The drinking took on a new persona in that my job was getting bigger and harder, and I noticed that I would ask friends on the trading floor every couple of days who's up for a drink, and there would always be somebody right outside of my window, accordion barrow, with a bar that was in a semicircle. And if the trading day was great, that would fill up from 2 o'clock, and I would look out and go, I want to be there and join in. They all looked like they were having fun, and I'm on the other side of the glass. So there was the temptation of all those people over there enjoying and celebrating. When the stress was getting too much, I would ask somebody to come out and we would drink, and then I'd be home for 9, get up, and the hangovers did start to creep in there. I wasn't drinking every day, it was more bingey, 3 days a week maybe. The magic had definitely started to fade by this point. I started to notice that it was more medicinal. It was a way of squashing down the stress. And also, if there was something I didn't want to do and I had to do it because I'd signed up to this corporate thing, I noticed that I would then as well. Yeah, it's strange. I can only unpick that now all these years later. So I arrived towards my 30s, big job, husband also got a big job, time to have a baby, and couldn't be pregnant. 3 years later, the doctor said to me, you really need to overhaul your lifestyle. How much do you drink? 30 odd units, when in fact it was 3 times more. My eating was very disordered in that I drank, I didn't eat. Or if I ate, I didn't drink, but it's one or the other. We used to laugh about it at the time, call it a liquid lunch or a liquid dinner, but it was never 2. He said, so your drinking needs to be dialed down, eating needs to be overhauled, and you need to dial down work and stress. So I remember looking at all of those 3 and thinking, okay, work I can do. I'll go to 4 days. The eating, I can make a conscious effort about me eating better. But the drinking, that is part of my job. How can I possibly change that? Maybe not drink on the weekends. So a little seed was planted, but nothing more than that. And eventually I fell pregnant. I had 1 and then I had 2 children, carried on work at high octane. And I got to the age of 39 and my world imploded. I felt like I had lost control over every aspect of my life, my sanity, my physical health. I didn't have a grip on work. I didn't have a grip on childcare. I had to literally pull myself out of society, and I went to rehab for a month. Under the guise of, they used to call it in those days, they used to call it burnout. It was burnout.
Was that your first month without alcohol since you were a teenager, really? Yeah.
When I had the 2 boys, I did it to the letter. absolutely incapable of having a baby and drinking. I just could not do the two. So I had long periods of abstinence, and they were wonderful because I had abstained and I felt physically good. Not connecting the dot that perhaps sobriety was helping with my mental health. Yeah, now it's very obvious. When I went back into work full time, yeah, the drinking crept back in. I was back to square one with mental health issues. I decided to make a complete change in my life and become a full-time mum. We moved to France close to my mum, and that was quite a blissful decade actually, because I could concentrate on my children. I was near to my mum, so I had help with looking after the children, and we connected really well. I was in a beautiful part of the world, and there was no such thing as wine culture. There is a wine culture here, but not with babies. Those do not mix. So there was no temptation to drink in the week. My husband was away, and I actually lived quite cleanly, carefully, and really did do a good job of being a great mom and enjoyed it. Still, the loneliness, the lack of fulfillment, and next kind of feeling starts to creep in.
How long was it until those feelings came?
Good question. Towards the end of my 40s, perimenopause had definitely reared its ugly head by then. And so I had quite a few imbalances going on. I had a third child, so I had another toddler at the time. But I reached the end of my 40s. This is a decade of being a single mum and a full-time mum. I remember having a bottle of wine and I would draw a line in the middle. This is the first time this had ever happened, like in my late 40s. And I would cut to the line in between children coming home from school at bedtime. That was my window. I would cut the line, and I felt terrible. I felt absolutely terrible for it, mentally terrible, really like a bad mum. Good God, now when I look back, I think, what are those big red flashing warning signs? Yes. Yeah, home alone with children. Yes, it's busy but boring. And it really is a thing how mum are driven to drink. And I was doing it alone. I wasn't even part of a group. I come to the end of my 40s, and I remember waking up on my 50th and thinking I should be feeling fantastic, and I was feeling crap. I felt miserable. Is this it? Is this what life's all about? My boys are cracking on with life. My husband got this very successful job. What am I doing with myself? I was starting to question my drinking then, not too much, until I read Claire Pooley's Sober Diaries. I can't remember how that fell into my lap, but it did. I think it was the Sunday Times. It was on the Sunday Times bestseller list. And I read it through curiosity, thinking, what has she got to say? I'll listen to it anyway. Oh my gosh, I read it in one go. I was absolutely gobsmacked. 3 reasons. The first was, Helene, you have a problematic relationship with alcohol. I related to everything she said. Number 2, you can actually do something about it. And you can actually live a life without alcohol, as proven by Claire Pooley. It's something that was just anathema to me. Incomprehensible how one could live without alcohol. And number 3, most importantly for me, alcohol can lead you serious health issues. In Claire's case, breast cancer. I have a lot of breast cancer in my family. It was the Damocles sword that was dangling over my head all that previous decade, going, this is something I'm going to get. So I reached the end of that around the age of 51, realising that I'm quite miserable. with drinking. It wasn't really giving me the same magic, the same medicine. And now what, in my 50s, what is it actually giving me? Apart from huge health issue and all those complications go with it. Did I do anything? No. But what I did do was realise that every time I drank, I was much more conscious that I wasn't actually enjoying it that much. It was making me feel like crap, and it was taking up so much headspace. The planning, how I'm going to drink, when I'm going to drink, who I'm going to drink with, how much am I going to drink. I thought I could moderate after reading that book. My rules were 50 units a week, which for me meant 5 bottles of white wine. Didn't care which brand. Made sure it was the 11%, nothing higher. I would drink between 5 and 7, which was my do not disturb window. Children were upstairs, and it was just before dinner, so I could carry on with all my responsibilities and no one noticed. I would have 2 days off. I stuck with that. I bought an app where I could track my unit. I did it like a project.
Did you know that the recommended low risk limits were 14 a week?
Yeah. I used to spend many hours Googling different unit allowances in different countries in the hope that the one I was living in at that time would be a bit higher. And funnily enough, I understand that in Spain and France it is a bit higher, something like 28. So let's say it's 28, so I'm going to go with the more generous country allowance. Add a margin of say 30%, because that's what we do. Plus factor my age in, that comes out about 50. So I justified to myself that this was a perfectly safe amount for me. If I ever go over that line, then you are a bad woman. When I did, which I sometimes did, not often, I would beat myself up. So I continued like this for 3 more years and really did kid myself. That was okay. Not problematic. I'd got it into control until the bomb exploded. The bomb that exploded for me was thyroid cancer, which I had in November 22. It caught up with me, really did catch up with me, the drinking. And no matter how healthily I was living aside from the alcohol, exercising, eating well, organic food, no, the alcohol was the one that got me in the end. I had thyroid cancer. That was quite an ordeal. It took about 8 months to get over that. Did I stop? No, because halfway through the treatment, I had to put my chemotherapy to one side because on New Year's Eve, I was taking the bins outside. I had a bottle of wine, my usual nightly bottle of wine. Put the bins outside, it was pitch black. I tripped over a log, fell onto my arm, broke it in two, the point where the bones came out again. I had to go to hospital, have that repaired, fixed back together, and didn't tell anybody. So this is now my secret shared with you all. That was a drug that was totally self-inflicted, and that deferred my chemo by 6 months until my arm fixed, because I was not allowed to wear a cast whilst in treatment because of the radioactivity that would penetrate it. By that point, drinking had become so miserable, and I was very aware that I couldn't stop myself, because when I left hospital, I couldn't not drink. I just couldn't stop the alcohol. And I thought, right, this is a problem. So I decided to do something about it. I knew that I had a very full-on summer ahead in 2023, and I had a whole host of guests. I knew that there was no way I could put those on one side, and that sobriety was something that would have to be parked until after they all left. So yes, that describes, in a quite long-winded way, the kind of decade going from magic to medicine to misery.
What happened next? Because then you had to find a way to do it.
Yes, yeah, I had to find a way, and I was totally helpless. I had no idea how to go about it. It was towards the end of the summer. I noticed acutely my drinking behaviours through the summer with all of the guests. And I noticed that I was drinking to just get through it, to be the party animal, to be the hostess with the mostess. I was so conscious, and it just reaffirmed in my head that this was not the right way to be drinking, if there is a right way. This was not good enough reason to continue drinking. I remember I was in Portugal at the end of the summer and decided I need to work out a way to stop. So I called my friend, Vanessa, my best friend, who is the font of all knowledge, and she sent me 2 names of 2 podcasters in this area. She gave me a whole load of books to read. Simon Chappell, William Porter, Catherine Gray, Claire Pooley, who had already read, and she said, look into AA. It might be for you, and if it's not for you, look into the other sober communities out there, because it's not just about AA. So I thought, head down, and I researched, and I treated it like a project. I set a date, 1st of September, which was 2 weeks away from when I started the research, and I hatched out a plan. Number 1, tell my family, close friends, that I was doing this. Number 2, read all the literature. Number 3, 2 podcasts a day, morning and night, each time walking the dog. Get outside twice a day. Get outside in the witching hour, and the witching hour is between 5 and 7. Make sure that all my meals, evening meals, were cooked ahead of time so that I wasn't in the kitchen around the witching hour. I would literally come back from the dog, get the meal out, and it was ready. Just switch up your routine. Then I looked into AA, and it just wasn't for me. I had already had a little dip into the world of AA when I was in rehab, and I remember being quite scared of the higher power concept, the surrendering and losing control. All of those words to me are scary words. They're all trigger words for me. They're all words that lead me to drink and eating. And I thought, I can't adopt these words, feel these words, and embrace these words when they actually have very negative connotations. So I looked online, I found a whole host of online communities, and one day on a dog walk, about 1 month in, I was listening to a podcast with Kate Bailey, and there was a lady on there who was talking about 3 points in her life where, 1, she was in a bath, nearly drowned. Can't remember what they were, but there were 3 points. Cancer, and then the 3rd one was the walking, talking blackout. And I thought, I've done all of those. The walking, talking blackout, I only did one 2 weeks ago at the age of 55. It was Janet, go around. And I thought, Janet, I am finding you, lady. And I went straight up to Tribe Saber website, and I thought, this is what I'm waiting for. All I had to do was put in my discount code, sign up, and I was immediately pulled in, welcomed by Sue, and it was a weekend, I remember. Sue wrote me on a weekend to welcome me, and every day she sent me an email, and I thought, I have landed in the right place. It was the final piece in the jigsaw puzzle for me. And every single day, the WhatsApp channels have been my saviour, and they still are 14 months in. Zoom Cafe, every single Saturday during that first 8 months. I have cried on those cafes, I have shared those cafes, I have listened intently in those cafes, I've heard other people's stories in those cafes, and they still are my saviour. Thank you. That's how I did it.
I'm so glad you found it. If you look back on that first year, and then we always say that first year isn't linear. You have ups and you have downs. What were the difficult bits for you?
Yeah, it really is a rocky road. It's a rocky road that goes up to a peak, for sure. That's the message that I really need to get across, that it's rocky, but it does lead you up to the top. So the first 3 months, it was day by day for me. I had a coach. I was accountable to her pretty much every day, and on my WhatsApp group, 𝐿𝐴𝐵𝐿, the accountability was really important, and I was in a pink cloud pretty much most of that. There were absolutely no socializing, no leaving my bubble, no temptation, no alcohol in the house. It was my bubble. First 3 months were hard, but in hindsight, the easiest part of that first year. Then I went into phase 2. I had a lot of issues going on at home. Seriously jeopardized my sobriety. My husband was selling his business. I had to move country and move home, support one child who was having a horrible time at university and the other one who was doing his A-level single-handedly. And it was tough. It was physically and mentally really challenging. Plus, I was only 3 months sober. And do you know what? I got through it. It took 4 months of sheer hard work and resilience. My resilience built by 𝐿𝐴𝐵𝐿, WhatsApp, 2 podcasts a day, eating well, baths, treats every day, reading, just making sure that my eye was on the ball and not overcomplicating my life, keeping it as simple as possible. My family comes first, my sobriety comes first, and that is it. Everyone else is white noise. So that was a really, really grim 6 months after 5 or 6 months, but I got through it. And so that would take me to about 9 months. 9 months, things started to calm down at home, started to get into a routine, which meant that I could now get back to being sober inside myself again. And that's where I started to peel the layers off the onion. Absolutely necessary part of all of this. I started to peel them away one by one. Didn't really like what I saw. Sometimes it was painful, sometimes it was hard work, sometimes I didn't want to do it. With a voice in my head constantly trying to knock me down all the time. My confidence was pretty low at the time. I remember talking to Lynette and banging my head against the wall and saying, Lynette, what do I do? Lynette being 𝐿𝐴𝐵𝐿, who is a font of all knowledge. So whoever's listening, highly recommend Lynette. She is such a good woman. And she was saying to me, think about your sage characteristics, think about those things, the resilience that you have. Feel the feelings. And this is something I have not done since the age of 8 or 9. If I bring you right back to the beginning, remember I had this sweet, the packet of biscuits to deal with those. And here I am, nearly 50 years later, facing feelings, first time in my life, head on, and not knowing what on earth to do with them. They were big, they were bad, they were nasty, they were painful, they were noisy. Yeah, you just have to sit with them.
Yeah.
So that was a very tricky, complicated, unnerving time until now.
When did it fall into place? When did you start feeling?
It was quite literally at 10, 11 months when I felt like I went from surviving to thriving. And something shifted in my head when I felt that I deal with the nonsense in my head. I could quieten the voices by eating well, educating myself about stuff that was important to me, hormone health, eating, alcohol, mental wellness. If I educated myself, I could teach myself how to deal with it. I'd say thriving started with self-compassion, meditating, chilling out a bit more, just taking time to reflect and accepting that feelings are okay. Try to put a name to feelings. And then, if I dare say it, allow yourself to dream to the next phase. What might that road to freedom look like for you? And I allowed myself to think up projects and all sorts of interesting things that I wanted to actually do alcohol free, and then the floodgates open.
Yeah, and that's when it gets really exciting, doesn't it? That's when the rewards come in. I like to think of sobriety as a springboard to the rest of our life, really. We can start getting excited and doing things that we would never do if we were still drinking.
Yeah. It's absolutely freeing in every sense in terms of what you can do, what you can achieve, what you can aspire to. It's limitless because who's there to put a limit on it? Alcohol's gone now.
Yeah,
The lid on your life was that cork in the bottle.
absolutely. Because you've heard us say that if alcohol doesn't destroy you, then it's going to at least stop you reaching your potential. And that's what it does to so many of us. And that's why when we don't have to put all that energy into being functioning alcoholics, we can do so much with that energy and can. You strike me as one of those people that just made up her mind on day one, I'm doing this, and you did it. Did you ever think, oh, I'm not sure I can do this, I think I'm going to give up? Do you ever have thoughts like that?
I didn't, for two reasons. One is I had to be absolutely 1,000% ready for sobriety. I had to be 1,000% ready for it to work. And I picked the 1st of September and I was 1,000% ready. There was too much to lose if I didn't. The second part of that after readiness is I had a list of whys. Why I am doing this and why I drank and why it's rubbish. The other ones were why I should stop drinking, and I still have them on my phone. I had 10 of them, and the whys are what kept me from going back.
Can you share some of those whys with
Yeah.
us?
Off the top of my head, there were things like, I want to live my life 100% instead of 80%. I want to be there for my children, and I'm really present. Not just on mute 60% at the time, which I felt I was. When I was drinking, I wasn't quite there. I want to live the second half of my life the best that I can instead of in a compromised way, and I wanted my health to be the best it possibly could. Take control of my health. Those were some of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you had them on your phone?
On my phone. They're on my phone. A bit later on, once I went from survival to thriving, I allowed myself to define my values, core values. Did not even know what a value was. All my life, I thought that's for other people. I have 5 values. It was quite easy for me to come up with them, and I can't imagine they will change much. But every decision and everything I do seems to align to those values now. Most of my behaviours, whilst I was drinking, maybe 1 out of the 5 would tick. most of them were compromised.
Yeah.
And I've noticed now that of my 5, I could say most of the decisions I make and the things I do and the way I speak and the way I act, I tick 4 of the 5 easily. So it's a really good moral guide. And I'm doing a course with Lynette, Path to Purpose, and it's helping us to define where we want to be in the next phase of our sobriety and how we're going to get there, living by our beliefs and living by our values. And it's such a useful piece of work to do on yourself, and it's you can do around the 10, 12-month mark. So I highly recommend to anyone listening.
Yeah, and when we're acting in line with our values, there's a sense of ease, isn't there? And I think our objectives are so much easier to reach. Let's talk about coaching. Talk us about the value of coaching for you.
One of the big tools in my toolbox from day one, mission stay sober, was a sober coach. And I signed up to 5 hours, which I spread over the first 3 months. And the purpose of those coaching sessions was to make sure that each day I had tactical. It really was. My coach gave me advice on how to get through each day, each week, each month. If there was an event coming up like Christmas, if there was a social coming up, I would talk to her and say, what do you advise me to do? Do I go to the work do? Do I avoid the work do? Do I take the car? Or there was another issue that I had. My husband stores drinks and I don't. How do I handle this? It was so useful in the first 3 months because I was a complete novice. And she had so much experience to share with me. A lot of people have success if they take alcohol out the house, or they tell their family, they say, if you want me to succeed in this, I need from you Bob. So it's really useful tips and tactics to get you through the first 3 months. So that was the first time I've used a coach. A bit later on, coaching took me to a different place, which was more about understanding myself. Now that I was becoming more me, instead of me under the alcohol, my gosh, is that what I look like? Is that really me? Am I really quite a psychopath? I never have thought that. Then you start to peel all these layers and you get to see the you. And that's when I did some work on the values and setting my purpose. That was an immensely interesting, tears and all sorts of overwhelming feelings came. But I've got the picture and I've got the storyboard and I've got the values, and I will always refer back to those. So very useful. Coaching now is something that has taken a grip on me to the point where I've decided to train as a coach myself. I am 2 months into it. It's absolutely fascinating. It will take 9 months of training. And by the end of it, I will be a coach in positive psychology with a niche in alcohol change. For me, alcohol change is not alcohol change, it means no alcohol. I don't believe in moderating or just a little bit every now and then. The only coaching I will do is to free yourself completely, to catapult yourself into the world that you deserve to be in, which is alcohol free. I am hoping by the end of 9 months, I will be able to help people to figure out achievable goals, also maximise and optimise their well-being.
If anybody's listening to this a year after it came out, just get in touch with Tribe Sober and we'll connect you with Helene.
Great.
So I
Can't
wish
wait.
you every success.
Thank you.
Last question, really. I was listening to this and thinking, what can I do? Because I think getting started on this journey is the most difficult thing, isn't it?
Have a battle plan. Setting a date and going for it. Clearing the decks. No alcohol. No socials within the next month. Having your podcast, earbuds, a dog to walk with, or a friend to walk with, get out to nature, set the date and go and enjoy a community, this community. And you need to be connected to that community every single day, all points of the day, when you feel vulnerable, when you feel happy, when you share your win. Always somebody here. Everybody wants to hear that. Everybody wants the best for you, and everyone G you along, push you through. If you have a slip up, you get back on the bus, keep on going. There's a tracker that you may have heard of where you literally colour in each day. And when you look at your tracker at the end of the month, more green reds, you're on the path to freedom. Now, there's nothing more rewarding than seeing that. So I just say, set the days, get the break, and join us.
Oh, thank you, Helen. Yeah, I think what you say about preparing is so important.
What I definitely recommend is to not start your sobriety with a hangover. I recall the number of times waking up after a rubbish night's sleep, a thumping headache, a child in my ear, or a dog needing to be walked, and going, I'm not drinking today, I'm never drinking again. If I could give myself €1 for every time I said that, I would go on this Bali retreat next year 5 times over with that money.
Wow.
So my recommendation is do it with a clear head, with time to prepare, set the date, sign up, go.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Anything else you want to share before I pull the plug on you?
I probably would mention one last thing, is when you are sober, you do things way out of your comfort zone, things that are unimaginable compared to when you were drinking. Unimaginable. One of the first things I did was unimaginable, was host a retreat at my house where I had 10 women I had not actually met in real life and we celebrated my 1 year sobriety, and it was heaven. Heaven on a plate. It was even more than I could ever have expected. It has given me a thirst and a hunger to do more of these kind of groups getting together.
Yeah, lovely. Yeah, I was one of the participants at the retreat, and I can vouch for how fun it was. And yeah, here we are planning more retreats. Ellen and I will be doing another podcast just about our retreat in Bali. Watch this space, and thank you so much, Ellen.
You're welcome.